I'm Martin Tanaka from Western Carolina BioView. I'm one of the co-chairs of this session, and my other co-chair is Sarah Roca-Bianca, who is from Michigan State. I have to acknowledge that this session was put together and organized by Tammy Bush, and I'm just filling in for her. She did all the work behind this, organized everybody. You probably have all had emails with her, and it's been a long process, and this is one of the most challenging projects or sessions to put together because we have to do it outside the normal system so that we give you guys extra time to work on your abstracts. You don't have that January 5th or 15th date to get everything done by. We give you about an extra month. So it's I'm glad you all are here, and it's going to be an exciting session. So our first group, yes.
Funding.
Thank you so much. This session is funded by the National Science Foundation, so it's great. It's funded by the General Nature-Related Disabilities Program. Alex Leonisa, sorry, is the chair of that program. So if you have any questions about the program, you can talk to him. Okay, so our first speakers are from the University of Denver, and they're going to be talking about BioView, a wearable sensor array for rehabilitation biofeedback.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Tyler Maydew, and my partners Brett Bonnermeyer and Katie Thompson. We created BioView, a wearable sensor array for rehabilitation biofeedback. Before we get started, we wanted to just thank our sponsor and customer, Al Johnson. He funded this project and gave us a lot of inspiration along the way, and our advisor, Dr. Bradley Davidson, for a lot of help along the way. But first, we'd like to get started by showing you a video about the product.
We present to you BioView, a wearable sensor array for rehabilitation biofeedback. 26 million Americans aged 20 through 64 have frequent back pain that can be correlated to poor posture. What BioView has done is created a shirt that can be worn while performing daily activities, provides postural feedback from dual inertial measurement units, and electromyography of key back muscles with conductive fabric integrated into the shirt. With a shirt that weighs less than 20 ounces and runs for approximately 30 minutes, patients, clinicians, or the average person can get accurate postural correction with simultaneous muscle activity feedback. BioView was created at the University of Denver, and the data were verified in our own Human Dynamics laboratory. With further advancements, BioView will become the smartest shirt in your closet.
So wearable sensors are everywhere nowadays. You see people with Fitbits, Apple Watches, Galaxy Gear, something on their wrist telling them a lot of information. We see they're a pinnacle of our new developing smartphone society. And the reason they're everywhere is because we need them. We need this data to help us improve our lives. These devices are giving us health, heart monitors, they're giving us pedometers, postural correction, a whole plethora of different activities are monitored now that we never really had easy access to monitor before. And so we're to start to realize that there's a lot more potential applications of wearable devices all over. And so even in athletics, devices that were only for people who could afford millions of dollars worth of equipment can be used now very inexpensively. And so, the current wearable market in 2013 was valued at $4 billion. In less than 5 years, it's projected to be at $11.6 billion. The current market breakdown is, as you see here, our device uses inertial measurement unit sensors and electromyography sensors. So it really fits in this category of a third of the wearables market. And so this is really the part of the market that we would look at trying to address and enter. We see it as a very growing and quickly emerging market, and we're confident that this device could really fit into this market. So, our solution is BioView, a new kind of wearable. The device is a health monitoring device that tracks the movement of the spine and the activation of select muscles in the back, specifically the erector spinae and the upper trapezius. Currently, BioView is just a proof of concept. We built this prototype to be really used in a clinical setting, where the data we provide will be used by clinicians to provide better insight into the patient movements. These movements could be monitored for rehabilitation purposes after surgery, people who are worried about a possible back injury, a future back injury, or just training people to sit up straight when they're at their desks all day. Just a whole bunch of opportunity for this product. So, our key design requirements was to make a wearable device that was really affordable. So we had to build it for under $500. But as all wearables need to be offerable anywhere, ideally, so we needed to have it at least operating for 30 minutes because no one takes a run for under 30 minutes except me. We wanted to give the user feedback about what's going on when we stop collecting data, the whole works. We wanted it also to be washable because when you go on a run, I tend to sweat, and we didn't want people to continue putting on this device and smell out a room or a clinical setting. And finally, to make it washable, we needed to have removable integrated sensors. And so the key for us was creating an EMG that was removable and reusable, because typically EMGs are not reusable if you're using those electrodes. And so that was a big design challenge for us. First, I want to talk about the IMUs. There's two IMUs on the device. They're located at the sacrum and the middle thoracic vertebra. With these locations, we were able to calculate a pelvis angle and a torso angle, and then using that, we can get a relative lumbar angle that gives a complete mapping of the spine. To calculate these angles, we used a complementary filter, which combines the accelerometer and gyroscope data using low and high pass filters to give us an output angle with respect to the vertical. Our other sensors were the EMGs. So we bought pre-built muscle sensing boards, and then these boards were able to rectify and give us out clean, rectified root mean squared EMG data, so we didn't have to do the post-processing for that piece. And then what we did to get the actual data is we used conductive fabric. And so the conductive fabric allowed us to make this device, that allowed us to have reusable electrodes using this conductive fabric with button snaps. And we made sure the contact was maintained with the body using straps to tighten it. Finally, the data acquisition system for this iteration device was set around using a Raspberry Pi B+. The IMU data is read in using I2C serial protocol, and then it's stored on the Raspberry Pi. The EMG data had to be converted to digital data, and then it was sent along into the Raspberry Pi as well, using another serial protocol. After we were completed with the data collection session, we would notify the user with a small vibrating motor that they were done getting data located on their left scapula. After the data is collected, the easiest way we thought to get it off is just to plug in a user flash drive and pull it off. But the Raspberry Pi had so many wireless potentials that we couldn't send it over Wi-Fi. We could upload it to Dropbox or anything along those lines. So the device is also powered by a 5-volt cell phone portable battery charger because the Raspberry Pi needs a very stable power source to maintain everything. And the EMGs are powered by 2 small lithium polymer batteries to give us the plus or minus 3.4 volts to get the proper amplification for the gains. The BioView device outputs 3-axis accelerometer data, 3-axis gyroscope data, and then the time, the microprocessor's clock time. The EMG data is the clock time, and then the voltage in millivolts. And then this data is put together and sent into MATLAB. After we pull it off of the device, we put it onto a computer and put it in MATLAB. And so I want to show you a practical clinical example that we use called the timed up and go, commonly known as the TUG. So as you can see, Brett is standing up and walking a simple timed up and go. So as you notice, as he gets up, there's a positive increase in the angle, which demonstrates an anterior tilt of the pelvis. And then as he's walking around, you notice a posterior tilt to the pelvis. When he sits back down, you have that same anterior tilt that you notice you get when you stand up. The torso angle does the same process, but it's not quite as severe. As you notice, you don't swing your torso as much when you stand up with this timed up and go process. So, we had a budget of $500 to build this device. We were able to come in under budget at $317. The eventual goal of this project is to actually build a device for under $100, because we really want to make something that is truly affordable, that can give you data easily and accessibly. So to really improve it, to get it below $100, we're going to really have to improve the electronic design. No more breakout boards. We're going to have to use a different system. The Raspberry Pi was an expensive piece of the project at $35. And so we wanted to use a smaller microcontroller that would also allow us to really simplify and hammer down the system so it's a lot smaller and more compact, because I don't anticipate seeing people want to run around with all that stuff on their back. But the product still came in under 20 ounces, so it's about as heavy as my suit jacket. So we also see that we can migrate this into a potential consumer applications. We see this device beyond the clinical setting. Talk we heard yesterday with Dr. Wilson was she had an experiment to find lumbar angles when people were lifting weights up. And she used electromagnetic sensors, which when you have them are excellent. They provide the data position really nicely. But when you don't have them, they're really expensive. And whereas this product can do that data collection, it also will provide EMGs that won't slip off when you're moving in hot weather. Or on the athletic side, I'm really excited about it. See, I'm an avid rower, and when I first learned how to row, a device that would tell me if my body angle was correct or my posture was correct would have been invaluable for the whole process. Any sport or activity where posture is important, this device could really help you. And it can tell you what's going on not only with your spine, but with the muscles around it. And so with that, we'd like to thank you very much for listening.
What's the plan for getting all the electronics off the back?
So, for example, the Raspberry Pi, we use that because it's a simple and very powerful data collection. But we could have also used a much smaller microcontroller. For example, TM4C 123 is a new Texas instrument come out that has A to D converters built into it, and it has it's called I2C integrated circuits to actually get the data off of the IMUs, and then serial peripheral interface to get it from the EMGs. And so having this device, we wouldn't need that whole circuit board you see to the left there, using it as launchpad. We just didn't really have time to actually design that circuit during that project. Sorry.
With respect to the data you're actually collecting, so you're collecting EMG data, you're collecting postural data, how is that being processed in that? What does the output look like for say, a clinician who wants to look at it and see what
Right.
the results are?
So the output of the data, as you saw there.
I saw the numbers, but are you doing any kind of graphical?
So the graphical, if you notice the timed up and go example when he was standing up, the graphic that came out, that was what we actually developed with our data, was that graph that shows
So that was
the
actually
angles.
data from
That was data from the file. Should have clarified that. Yeah. Oh.
Just the feedback to the user, is it from the data after the fact, or is it real-time feedback while they're doing the activity?
So currently, it's after the fact, because the real-time, again, was programming that we weren't able to get to with this prototype, but the eventual goal is to have something like an iPhone where you could process the data, because the Raspberry Pi could have processed the data, we just didn't have the programming knowledge to get that done with Python. And so using something like the controller to actually process the data, we can send it to like your iPhone over a Bluetooth connection or something similar to that. So that's like the eventual goal.
Same question. Just from an industry perspective, you could start selling this today. That's a pretty good product.
Thank you. There's probably a lot more research to be done in terms of, maybe fall risk assessment based on some of the data. Probably all kinds of stuff that could be built in.
Exactly, and more IMUs and more EMGs could always help giving a better picture. Thank you.
One more question.
How is this different from current wearable products?
So when we started this project, the only current wearables, so the current wearables are on your wrist. And so they give you your heart rate and they give you a pedometer. They can't give you much more than that. And so this shirt, and it ideally was something that you could just put on and get this data. And so there is no product out there right now that's actually doing that. You have smaller products that give you vibrating when it decides that your body's not tilted correctly. But more than anything, we thought that was a little obnoxious. I mean, we vibrate with this, but it's only to tell you they were done taking data. But something that is actually mapping your spine like this, comparably to, we compared it to the Vicon motion capture system in the lab, and it was fairly comparable. For $315, it's pretty amazing.